First third down for Chicago. 3rd and 5. Williams in. Rhythm again. There's Zacchaeus. And Olamide Zacchaeus takes it to the end zone for the Bears touchdown. 36-yard touchdown to finish off a 93-yard drive to start this game.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Ben Johnson era, even though it's the preseason, couldn't have started. Watch the switch release here and what it does, creating leverage for Zacchaeus, and then it's just man coverage. Runs past Damar Hamlin, the safety, and it's nothing but green grass ahead.
The Bears are back, baby.
I love that call. I love that we're overreacting. I love that the preseason is inching closer to an end. This is Gregg Rosenthal. This is NFL Daily. And Nick Shook is joining me from across the country. Every year, Shookie, we get one preseason game where a veteran type of team overperforms for like 2 drives. It's usually these weird Fox games that are in prime time for some reason, and then we get to make too big a deal out of it for the next 3 weeks. This is that game. The Bears got up 28-0 on the Bills' backups. Let's go.
Wait, you mean to tell me the dress rehearsal doesn't matter? What? I thought this is supposed to be the greatest preview of what we're going to get for the next 18 weeks.
I mean, it matters a little bit, and we are going to go through every single game that's been played in preseason week 2. There's still one more to go on Monday night. But on Sunday night, the fact that it was Caleb Williams, the fact that it was all by itself on national TV, and I know Joe Davis had his, little tongue-in-cheek there, saying that the Bears are back. But after what had been a rocky first couple of weeks of training camp and all the reports and them struggling, and then you've heard this drumbeat of the joint practices are getting better, and they had a good one, I think, with the Bills, to this week, and some of the reporters Caleb's starting to look a lot more comfortable, and then he goes down the field, and yes, it's against a lot of the backups, but that's just all I wanted to see. Just a nice, decisive Caleb Williams drive, and I'm excited for the Bears season.
Yeah, I mean, this is the drive that every Bears fan is going to point to for the next 2.5 to 3 weeks, saying, Ben Johnson, there's his fingerprints are all over this, man. We're like we're back part. They actually are going to point to this as that, but if anything, it's encouraging because it was such a disaster at times last season, and you felt bad for Caleb. He didn't have time to throw. He was hesitant to throw. It was just a nightmare of an operation. So to see them seemingly in sync and beyond Caleb, by the way, like Tyson Bagent's ran this offense pretty well too. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be encouraged. It is only the preseason, but I like the positives that came out of this game.
Just that, yeah, they're understanding the offense. Because if you watched a lot of Caleb Williams last year, you didn't see open receivers. And it's like the first throw of the game's to Colston Loveland. Actually, that was just a normal good throw. And then you have a wide open Cole Kmet over the middle. Zacchaeus on the long touchdown we saw pretty wide open. Loveland had an 18-yarder in there too. They overcame a penalty. They overcame field position, and they scored a touchdown. Now, not as sharp on the second drive. Caleb went 1 for 4 on that, and you're right, Bagent then lit up the Bills. At one point in the first half, the Bears had 28 points. The Bills had 22 yards. But like I said, it was a lot of Bills backups. I thought I'd see Josh Allen in this game. I guess they decided not. I don't have a lot of other notes here. The Bills might not put Curtis Samuel on this team. I'm starting to wonder, he's not in the top 3 receivers right now. Elijah Moore is playing really well and is guaranteed money. Samuel's hurt. They like this guy, Tyrell Shavers, but Samuel is due $6.9 million. So that's a little bit on my radar. He's guaranteed that money. Other than that, I didn't have major Bills takeaways here, other than Josh Allen apparently played well enough at the joint practices that they didn't feel like they needed to see him here.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect them to anyway. They know what they have in him. Is there a chance that KJ Hamler's still in the mix to fill out the back end of this receiving core, or is he just a fun focus on Hard Knocks? Because if he can stay healthy,
it feels like a fun focus on Hard Knocks. Although I have to admit, this is the first Hard Knocks I haven't watched.
Oh, you got to catch up. He's good for sound bites. He's made me laugh a lot.
Okay, they lost me a little bit the last couple seasons.
They did, and I agree. There's some additional intrigue. There's some intrigue with the fact that they're a Super Bowl contender. Usually you get the underdogs and the teams that want to become something, but there's some household names out there, and so it is kind of interesting. But I do want to go back to the Bears for one point only. Look, we've heard about Luther Burden since his days in Missouri as a receiver, but he blocked his ass off on Sunday night. Twice he was responsible for goal line scores because he was willing to get in the mix, crack back. He's not the biggest receiver, but he threw his entire weight at the defense right on the edge, created the lanes for 2 rushing touchdowns. And Greg Olsen was just shocked because most rookie receivers aren't willing to sacrifice their body. Like, Luther Burden is earning his targets.
Great call, Chuck. This show would have been incomplete without that information. And Burden popped off for 3 catches, 49 yards. My son Walker were watching the game together, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to draft Luther Burden." And I try to explain to him, like, "Yeah, but DJ Moore's first, and then Ruma Dunze's next, and I think both tight ends are in front of him. But if he's good, he's good. And whether it's reality or fantasy, he is going to help the Bears out." So like I mentioned, we have 14 other games we're getting to. One of those is not Bengals Commanders, because that's Monday night, but the Bengals, dropped some random news on us on a Sunday afternoon. I actually think it was Trey Hendrickson that dropped it. Either way, Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero reported that the Bengals are listening to trade offers for Trey Hendrickson. When I saw some of the local reporters, mention it, I got the feeling this is Trey Hendrickson trying to drum up business. I don't have the feeling that any trade is going to happen and that the Bengals are going to ask for way too much. So to me, until I hear something more, it's not a huge story. And this show is more about the games. Shook, we had some wild games this weekend, just in terms of like crazy endings. If it was actually a regular season game, like it would have blown my mind. This Saints Jaguars 17-all tie had so many twists and turns in the fourth quarter, and twists and turns in this quarterback battle. Tyler Shook gets the start. I thought they were set up for Tyler Shook to go win this job this week. Just the drumbeat of the practices, of him getting better and better and better, kind of closing that gap, being maybe a little better in the preseason opener. I thought this was his chance to win the job. I left the game being more confused, but overall thinking Spencer Rattler played better overall with the backups in the second half than Shook did with the starters in the first half. Kellen Moore said he'd like to make a decision sometime soon. His 2 guys haven't really made it easy on them. What do you think?
It's not the only quarterback battle that is in this place, too, by the way, in this preseason, which has been very strange at the position. And we will get to them. Yeah, I would agree. Shook had a nightmarish start. He looked overwhelmed. And then he did settle in later in the first half and posted a respectable stat line and looked like he could handle the responsibilities of the offense. And then Rattler comes in the second half, and he just looks kind of like a natural. Like, I've been here before. I know what to do in this offense. I'm going to deliver with confidence. And it does complicate matters, but I also tend to not... I know that coaches value joint practices almost more than preseason games at this point, and it's because of who you're playing with and when you're playing in the game. And Shook getting the start and finding his footing, I think, was encouraging enough that I still think they're going to lean in that direction, but it is close.
Maybe. I think if you add up the entire month, like, Rattler's been better. And I think the fact that Shook's made it closer lately gives you the thought, well, the tie goes to the young guy, although he's not the young guy. He's literally older than Rattler. But tie goes to the rookie who this regime handpicked in the second round. But he kind of froze against pressure early. And I saw some Saints fans just excusing it, saying that these were free rushers on these plays where Shook took 2 sacks. But yeah, you look kind of, he just didn't look like an athlete while tripping over his own feet and kind of ducking on one of them. And then the other, he just goes down and he holds the ball. He freaked out against pressure a little bit in his college tape too. Whereas Rattler, occasionally the pressure was getting to him in this game. He's doing spin moves. He makes some nice throws against pressure, even on shorter passes. And he had some big time plays. And I thought he was stamping himself to win the job. And then he throws an interception deep in the Jaguars territory on a route that I thought Mason Tipton completely gave up. Like, he got a little disrupted and just stopped. And that kind of killed Rattler, who threw the ball with anticipation. He shouldn't have thrown it anyways. But Rattler responded and drove them down the field with almost no time remaining, got them to within 2 points, and then runs in the 2-point conversion. And that drive included a number of really good throws. And I thought that drive where he finally, instead of just playing it safe. I think he's tried to avoid mistakes throughout this whole process. Actually ripped it, and he had a couple nice throws to Tipton, who's earning himself a bigger role. To me, that was like the best quarterback play I've seen out of the Saints. I want the agenda. I want Rattler to be week one. I'm really not sure what they're going to do.
Well, I think it really comes down to, what do you envision for this offense? What does it look like this year? Is it going to require a lot of improvisation? Because if that's the case, then Rattler's your guy. If you think that you want to establish an identity offensively and want a guy to play within a system, then Shuck's your guy. And the reason I lean on that is because of what you just described with Rattler as the improviser, but also I saw Shuck reading coverage and quickly taking checkdowns, understanding, all right, that's not there. I'm going to get the ball out. He did look bad under pressure a couple times. One of those sacks, he had no chance. Like nobody's getting that ball out. I think it was the second of those 2 sacks.
You don't want to look. For some reason with him, he just doesn't look good, you know?
There's moments where I'm like, yes,
points.
that's good. And then there's other moments where I'm like, oh, God, that didn't look good. That looks like his college tape.
So, yeah, I think the offensive line's been a problem for the Saints throughout camp. Like, they haven't been able to really run the ball. Kendre Miller is healthy for once, and I think is running hard, which actually gives them a little juice. Shuck had one good drive. Like, he had 3 drives. He scored 3 points. In the one drive, he went 5 for 5 before Olave just dropped a wide open good throw on 3rd and long and killed the drive. So that is not really on Shuck. It's tough. You're also trying to manage, like, it's a rookie. Would we rather start with Rattler versus some tough games and then bring in Shuck? Or do we just want to give Shuck all the confidence and just start him right away? Who knows? We'll find out. On the Jaguar side, by the way, I just think I like what I see out of Trevor Lawrence. I know it's the preseason, but he's played a decent amount in these 2 weeks. Just making some like faster decisions. Travis Hunter didn't play in this game. Brian Thomas Jr. had a drop in this game, which has reportedly been a feature of his training camp. But a lot of Brenton Strange, like on 3rd and long, and he's really been good. Parker Washington had a touchdown. They would have gone up and down the field on the Saints and scored 2 touchdowns, if not for a fumbled exchange with the running back that Trevor Lawrence had when his offensive lineman stepped on him. But just kind of like what I see. Just we'll see. It's Liam Cohen. It's new, but I just like what I see out of the Jaguars so far.
Yeah, I would expect a decent amount of Brenton Strange this year. If you look back to the Buccaneers last year when they lost all their receivers and we got a lot of Cade Otton, it's kind of the same. The concept, Liam Cohen was the OC at that time, so that wouldn't surprise me. You know what else I really like about this team, and we don't know if this is going to end up being the final trio, but if it is, I actually really like what the running back room brings. Tank Bigsby looked explosive. You talk about the guys in preseason who clearly have the juice. He clearly has the juice. Etienne looked solid. Bashal Tootin starting to find his footing as well. He scored a touchdown. I enjoyed what I saw from all 3 of those guys. So I'm a little bullish on this offense. As a team overall, still a bit skeptical, but I think that they are going to take some steps forward, and that's why they hired Liam Cohen in the first place.
And the Jaguars did play their starters on both sides of the ball for a couple series. So Shuck, when he was really struggling, was going against the Jaguars starters, and then they took him out. The Saints, on the other hand, played their offensive starters, but not their defensive starters, just if you're keeping score at home. All right, let's go to the Broncos-Cardinals. I don't have a ton on this game. The Cardinals got rolled 27-7. Troy Franklin had a couple touchdowns. I did go back and watch his targets. What I like now is he's showing some versatility. Like, we've seen him on a couple go balls, had a nice jump ball touchdown, but also a play in the slot where he went across the formation. They're really deep at wide receiver. Like, I want to be excited about Troy Franklin. After the game, Sean Payton was asked about his year 2 leap, and he's like, it's happening. This is the leap. But if you look at the depth chart, like, he's probably wide receiver 4 because they sat their starters, which is Devon Vele, Cortland Sutton, and Marvin Mims. So I just think they've got a lot of weapons, including Evan Ingram, who had a big play in this game too.
Yeah, I was going to mention him if you didn't. I mean, even like Adam Troutman, made some plays for them last year. Like, I like how they're too deep is at tight end as well. They're sneaky deep all over their offensive side of the ball, including, and call me crazy, maybe I'm a little hyperbolic since it is week 2 of the preseason, is Jarrett Stidham one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL? Because 2 weeks, he's put together 2 really good outings. And I know the Cardinals starters weren't out there, and this was just a bunch of 2nd, 3rd, 4th stringers, and that's what you get in the preseason. But I don't know, man. He's putting together some good tape this preseason.
I'm glad you mentioned he had 240 yards and 2 touchdowns and a half in this game. I added up his 2 weeks. He's 30 for 38 for 376 and 4 touchdowns. And our old friend James Palmer, congratulations to him, now working at The Athletic with Scoop City. Love James Palmer. He started just like thinking out loud on Twitter, being like, I don't know if, preseason MVP, that's not a thing, but if there was one, I think it would be Jarrett Stidham. And I thought,
that's what I'm saying.
Great idea, Palmer. Great minds think alike. We used to hand out the preseason MVP award annually. At some point, I stopped doing it. I remember one year it was a Matt McGloin of the Raiders versus Corey Washington, a wide receiver of the Giants who had a game-winning touchdown somehow in 3 straight weeks. I think Stidham and a quarterback that we're going to talk about a little later are the co-favorites for preseason MVP. So I'm glad you reminded me that is a thing. By the way, Pat Bryant, too, their 3rd-round pick at receiver, and R.J. Harvey, their 2nd-round pick at running back, both had really nice games. So the Broncos look like they could be a wagon this year. We'll see. On the Cardinals side, they didn't really play anyone.
No.
Supposedly, the joint practices like Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride look great, but we hit that a little bit on Thursday. I thought it was notable. Will Johnson was playing, not for long, but the rest of the starters weren't. So just maybe a sign like they just want the rookie to get a little more work. Maybe he's not quite ready. And I don't know if you're clocking this, Shook, but Zay Jones has won the wide receiver 3 battle there over Greg Dortch. Just an update there for you.
That's a big hit to those who love Greg Dortch, who like smaller receivers who make big time plays. But
he's a perfect 4th, right? He's just made to be a 4th.
He's a gadget. He's a gadget, and you can mix a gadget in anywhere. It doesn't matter where he ranks in the depth chart.
Yes, and our old friend Will Hernandez. I had mentioned he'd been a free agent a few weeks back. He's back with this team, and when I say old friend, I mean that we randomly hung out with him at this event during the Super Bowl for Latino football players run by one of my good friends. And he was so nice to my son Walker, talked to him for 10 minutes and took a picture. So let's go, Will Hernandez, back in the league. All right, Bucks and Steelers. Bucks win 17-14. I like to say the score every once in a while. Why don't you start? Give me any big takeaways if you have any from this game.
I'm all over the Emeka Egbuka train. And so I know he had 1 catch, but it was a touchdown catch. And it was a prime example of what made him a great receiver at Ohio State and why he's going to be a contributor in this offense with Tampa Bay. So I was excited to see that. Another one of those games where, you don't get Baker Mayfield, but you do get a little Teddy Bridgewater, a couple touchdown passes out of Teddy Two Gloves back in the NFL. So that's fun. And Skylar Thompson, not as prolific this week as he was last week for the Steelers, but put together a solid stat line as well. Look, Caleb Johnson goes 11 for 50. That's solid because that's a guy that they're going to count on, I think, more, especially late in this season. Those are all positive signs, but it's one of those classic preseason games with 2 teams that kind of know who they are, don't need to test that much of what they have. They do need to see more out of Roman Wilson. 2 catches for 72 yards. That's more. And a year ago at this time, Roman Wilson was battling an ankle injury and was out of the picture. So that's super encouraging for this offense that they've said over and over again, whether directly or through sources, through reporters, they feel much better about this. Now we're starting to see little peaks of it. So I'm excited for the Steelers.
Yeah, 2 big plays because that's not what you think of him. I mean, it was a bomb down the field from Mason Rudolph. Now, Rudolph threw an interception on his first throw, I think, and that was intended for Wilson, who maybe didn't totally help him out. But then he had a bomb down the field as an outside receiver and then another crossing route. So that's great. I mean, two big plays. You can't ask for much more. You mentioned Egbuka, his only catch. Seeing Teddy Bridgewater back in the league throwing dimes to young men like Egbuka, it just made me smile. So let's take a listen.
3rd and 3, a big one for the Steelers defense, trying to get off the field, settle for 3. Emeka Egbuka in the end zone. Eccles in coverage. Egbuka has that one, and it's a touchdown. He's the number 1 pick out of Ohio State. That's a 5-yard score from Bridgewater to Egbuka, and Nichols was there, but it was just a really good pass and catch.
You can totally tell if it's the home or the away announcers in these preseason games. That's what we have access to, and that was absolutely the Steelers. But, man, Teddy threw 2 touchdowns. The other was to Bucky Irving, which was another tight throw, and you do wonder if he's the backup because he came in, he looked good right away, and Kyle Trask comes in, he was 3 for 10, almost had 2 interceptions, and it was just a reminder. I did watch this one. The offensive line was not good for either one of those guys, and for the most part for Teddy, it was the starters, but it's not Tristan Wirfs, and so you do wonder when Baker gets back in there, and he is supposed to be back soon. Just will it be as good an offensive line right now? They are running tests, Nick, on Jalen McMillan, who had an injury in this game. A little unclear what it was, whether it was a head injury or what. And then Jacob Parrish, who's played really well, could be a starter for them, a rookie cornerback who's challenging Jamel Dean for time. Nick Herbig also left this game, but Mike Tomlin said afterwards he thinks he is okay. And I'm curious because you watched the Big Ten. Caleb Johnson, I saw those numbers, so I did go back and watch his carries, and he played behind Gainwell like very clearly, and they just sat Jaylen Warren. So to me, he might be third in line. And I know the numbers were good, but he's like a big back. It was a lot of East-West. So I have a feeling they'll be trying to like coach him on he had major holes in this game like to run through. And so I'm not giving him too much credit. And maybe it's a little concerning he's behind Gainwell.
I also see him as a prospect who is going to take a little bit longer to ramp up because of the transition from Iowa football specifically, which is very much old school between the tackles running ground and pound, to the NFL, and he has to adjust to that. And I also think that they drafted him with the idea that they don't need to lean on him, but they hope that eventually he becomes the rugged back that Najee Harris was for them for so long. And they know that they can kind of make it work with Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell in between. So that's why a little bit surprising that you don't see him get starter reps, though, because you would want him to get more reps in a preseason game. But then again, you're getting your starters out of there after a few series.
Yeah, Derek Harmon, their first-round pick, defensive lineman, who I don't think we've mentioned on this show almost at all in camp. The reports have all been really good. They say he's a week 1 starter. He had a sack, a big run stop in this game, so it's really been positives for the Steelers for Derek Harmon. You never know if those first-round picks look like first-round picks, and he does right away. All right, let's go to the Giants and the Jets. You know, this was the Snoopy Bowl back in the day with Rex Ryan. Way back when like Joe Namath was playing, this is how I can't understand what football was like then. Supposedly like a preseason game following the Jets Super Bowl, Nick, the guarantee by Joe Namath, like the preseason game the following year, by all accounts, was a bigger deal than the Super Bowl the previous year, which is hard for our mind to really wrap around. But like in terms of audience, fans there, like people weren't really into the Super Bowl back then, but the New York people were into the New York teams, and the Giants were it's hard to really imagine that being the case. I would not say it was that big a deal this year, but Drew Lock is coming, bro. Like he might be the number 1 story of the preseason so far. Jackson Dart playing this well and kind of putting that making that leash just a little tighter on Russell Wilson. I think he is. I don't know what story is bigger, like a non-injury story.
No, I agree. Watching this, I thought Russ played pretty well.
Yes, good point.
You know, he had a classic like Russ fade, nice rip down the middle type of thing. Like played like Russ is expected to play. But then there was, and I don't know if it was because of the portion in the game, because Dart comes in like this middle of the second quarter, right? There's like 7:30 left on the clock, and suddenly Dart's in. It's almost as if like somebody took a syringe and just injected them with adrenaline as an offense. They just like ran a more competent offense. He was in complete control. I know, again, it's mid-second quarter, so you're not facing the full strength of what Russell Wilson might have been facing, but they just operated better. They seemed like an offense that could really move the football. Call me crazy, but after 2 preseason games and reading through the tea leaves and the lines of how Brian Dable treated the first game, I would not be surprised if we saw Jackson Dart win that job and pull a classic Russell Wilson over Matt Flynn situation at this point. It's crazy. It's New York. All the spotlight's on him. But for all of that, I feel like Dart is actually capable of handling that. And he's played really well through 2 games.
I agree with you. I am a little pushed off that by Dable immediately at the press conference afterwards saying Russ is our starter. You know, that was the question. But we've seen coaches back off that after, you know, either watching more games or watching the film or talking to the 2 guys. So it's not that crazy. I saw Dan Duggan of The Athletic getting pushback for basically writing a column, not even saying that I keep wanting to call him Drew Lock for some reason, Jackson Dart. They just seem so similar.
Drew Lock had that game. He balled out last year.
It's so similar in terms of vibes that all he was saying was, man, it might not be long till we see Dart, but that no challenge for week 1. It's not crazy at all. And it was almost like when Dart came in the game, suddenly Dable is like just felt alive and was just doing everything.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
Offense was totally different. It was up tempo. It was playing all to Jackson Dart's strengths. It was a totally different offense. And I kind of was thinking like, well, if you're going to totally change the offense for the guy who's your future, it's like, why wait till week 3?
Just do it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, just do it. Like we don't need, the bridge quarterback is the bridge quarterback because you need to get to the other side of the bridge. If you already know or have the destination, the route to the other side, Go there. Just go there. Skip the travel. Just get to the next guy. I might be crazy. I might be, again, hyperbolic here. But I think that if you feel that confident about this guy and he showed what he showed through 2 preseason games, just do it. Who cares? Who cares? You're coaching for your job. Who cares? Take the guy you like.
Right. It just won't be long. Like Russell Wilson, one bad game and he could get benched. And to your point, he did look totally fine in this game. That shot that he had was a 60-yard plus throw. I mean, it was sweet. And they scored a touchdown on that drive. The receiver, Bo Collins, undrafted rookie, who I assume is making this team because he was starting, we got like 1 yard short. But then Russell Wilson, the next couple of drives, they didn't score. He actually went punt, interception on a miscommunication the next 4 drives. So it wasn't like an amazing performance. Dart, I didn't think was actually as flashy as the first start. He didn't make as many wow throws. He just moved the offense and handled the screen plays and evaded pressure, and everything was just like very professional. On the Jet side, Justin Fields only went 1 for 5 for 4 yards. In 2 weeks, Nick, he has averaged 3.9 air yards per throw, which is just wild. And like the Jets would say, we don't care. The second drive of this game, they ran the ball, Nick, 10 straight times to start the drive before Fields threw a pass, 11 out of 12 in what was, I think, a touchdown drive.
Yeah, and I'm not one to try to find excuses for Justin Fields at this point in his career, but I do wonder, like, opponent, they like the Giants defense looked like world beaters against his offense with him on the field, no matter whether they ran or threw. And it wasn't until Martinez comes in and, obviously you have your backups in, they start to move the football and he looked pretty solid, for a backup. So I just wonder, like, did he have 2 challenging defenses that he went against in the preseason and as he's trying to figure out this offense, or is it still, this is just who they're going to be? I'm not 100% certain. We'll find out in the regular season. But not encouraging statistically. No, not encouraging.
Well, and coming off the joint practices where all the reporters were like, the Jets didn't even try to throw the ball. And it's true. I mean, like, their number 1 receiver is very good, Garrett Wilson. Their number 2 is either Josh Reynolds or rookie tight end Mason Taylor. I mean, they are going to run the ball a lot. I think it was noteworthy. Breece Hall was rotating, with the starters, with Braylon Allen. I just, for fantasy, I just don't think he's going to be that volume guy this year. And then we've just been talking, so much about, the rookies in general, and Carter for the Abdul Carter for the Giants, and then Membu for the Jets, like how amazing they looked a week ago. So it's only fair to note that they had some down moments in this game. Membu definitely gave up a lot of pressure to the Giants. And on the flip side, Carter did not have the crazy standout game. He kind of had a welcome to the NFL moment where he just got knocked on the ground and hit silly. So it'll happen. I'm really excited, though, to see those 2 guys when the regular season starts. Let's take a quick break. We've hit a couple of the quarterback battles. We've got more to come. Back on NFL Daily. Just talked the Battle of New York. There is no greater rivalry in the City of Angels than Chargers-Rams preseason. It's not remotely true. But sneaky, I don't think these teams like each other. It's not really about the teams. It's more like you're sharing a building. Like, I think it is a thing. But the preseason is not when you really find out much. Unfortunately, the biggest takeaway for me in this game, Shook, was the Chargers receivers, which had some good with the young players, but bad when it came to Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, Johnson takes a hard hit, knocks him out of the game. Worried about head injuries. You're worried about depth on this team, and that's been a concern for us throughout this entire preseason. We've heard. Jordan said that Trey Harris has some stuff to him. I believe it's paraphrasing of what she said. And yet we still have a group that we kind of have to sort out. This is also a group that saw Mike Williams unexpectedly retire. They bring in Keenan Allen to kind of plug that gap. They're not in crisis, but it has not been easy for them as well. So this is not encouraging. But again, it is it's okay that it's happening in week 2 of the preseason and not week 2 of the regular season. There was an opportunity, though, as a result for some of these guys lower on the depth chart to make a difference. Trey Harris being one of them. You want to talk about having some stuff to him. 6 catches for 85 yards, played really well in this game. Keandre Lambert-Smith, 2 for 66 as well. And then you get tight end Raheem Sanders getting involved with a couple of catches too. So it's not, the worst, but again, it's preseason. You have to kind of figure out, all right, well, who are they playing against when you're evaluating? There are worse scenarios and situations at receiver elsewhere than the Chargers, but for a playoff team that is clearly going to be a run-first team that wants to win in the trenches, you would like to have, reliable options. Luckily, you have Justin Herbert, who's still going to make those guys better just because he's so good.
Yeah, it's just so Chargers, though. They never play their starters in the preseason. Reportedly, it was Justin Herbert's decision more than anything, was kind of pushing Harbaugh, I really want to play. He was like, okay, and you're going to play the starters then with him. 3 plays in, he throws, a beautiful ball down the field, which gets deflected. Then it goes through Johnston's hand, kind of an unnecessary hit by the Rams defender there who takes him out, and he's out cold. And just man, this is so Chargers. Now, he immediately had feeling. He did go to a hospital, but it's a concussion. We're about 3 weeks till that Brazil game, so hopefully he can get healthy in time. And it was good to see Trey Harris do something. He'd been relatively quiet in camp compared to DeAndre Lambert-Smith, who was a 5th-round pick. Trey Harris was the 2nd-round pick. Lambert-Smith, I think it's safe to say, had a better camp and definitely a better preseason before tonight. But then Trey Lance comes in and he starts forcing him some balls in difficult situation. And I thought this was Trey Lance's best game. I know Trey Lance has looked really good this preseason, but it's mostly been running. In this game, he tried a couple throws into tough spots that were advanced throws for him. And Trey Harris really stepped up, and you were like, okay, it was great to see it. And then Lambert-Smith, who also took a big hit when Herbert was still in the game, and he went out for a minute, came back in and had 2 big throws. So I think you feel great that these 2 rookies have stepped up. Keenan Allen did start, though, over both of them. I thought it was interesting how they used him and McConkey. One was in the slot, McConkey to start, and Allen's on the outside. And then they kind of flip them during the drive. I think that's kind of how they're going to use it. But for now, it's Keenan Allen's job. All right, let's talk Rams, because Stetson Bennett is becoming a thing. Such a thing, I actually think it's time for Who Delivered, presented by Uber Eats. Stetson Bennett delivered. I mean, I mentioned there's 2 candidates for preseason MVP earlier in the show. Nick, I think these are the 2. I think it's Jarrett Stidham. You can tell me who else would be in there. And I think it's Stetson Bennett, because you don't do much more than he did in this game, going over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, had a pick, but responded from it with a late touchdown to win the game and the Battle of LA.
Presley, you just made that catch to the bottom of your screen.
Don't throw him a fade.
Stetson stands in, drills one, end zone.
What a
2
play.
yards
Hello.
from the mailman.
Welcome to the NFL, Drew. He's got size. I saw it there. What a finish from Stetson Bennett.
My goodness.
That was the trio that gets it done each and every week. Our friends JB Long, Mina Kimes, and Maurice Jones-Drew. Stetson Bennett had a 4th and 10, Nick, at the 48-yard line with 19 seconds to go, and they hit a 40-yarder and then an 8-yarder to a man I wasn't familiar with, True Edwards, for the game winner to win by 1. I mean, that it is very difficult to go from 4th and 10 at the 48 with 19 seconds to go down a touchdown and win the game. How about that?
No, he also converted a 4th and 3 with 41 seconds to go for a 5-yard completion as well. Like they had to convert multiple 4th downs in this final drive. Look, you can say what you want about his ceiling or whatever, and the fact that they're playing the preseason, but I hate to sound like a classic college coach here, but I'm going to. Guy's a winner. Guy was a winner at Georgia. Yeah, he took some time away from the team as a pro. He's been back. He's back. He's recentered himself. He's delivering in the clutch, which obviously falls under this Uber Eats Deliver award. And I think he deserves it. The question is, what is he delivering via Uber Eats other than W's and clutch touchdowns? Because I'm thinking, what do I like to get delivered? Usually comfort food. Do I want fried chicken? Do I want, what is tasty? Because that was delicious for Stetson Bennett and the Rams.
I mean, never say that Nick Shook won't do everything and more. I mean, he's giving more value to this sponsor read than they even asked for, and you're absolutely right. And I think it could matter. Saturday morning, Matthew Stafford was supposed to work out with the team. They asked officials about it during the game. The Los Angeles Times reported the Rams said Sean McVay will address that Monday. So who knows? We don't need to talk about that anymore, but Bennett could matter for this team. He'd be the backup to Garoppolo, and he has played outstanding. That was Who Delivered, presented by Uber Eats. When football makes you hungry, get game day meals on Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. order now. And the last thing I'll say on Bennett was, the Chargers defense, and Bennett played the whole game. They deserve credit. It was kind of a nightmare start to the Chargers because the Rams backups marched down the field and scored a touchdown on all the Chargers starters. So it was a reverse of what you normally hear. And then they just let Bennett play the whole game. So he played the starters, the second stringers, the third, he played against and with everyone. And he scored a really good drive with Corum at running back and making nice throws against the starters. But in the fourth quarter, the defensive coordinator for the Chargers actually dropped a defensive tackle into coverage, and Bennett got intercepted, and that defensive tackle just ran over Bennett. It was like one of the best highlights of the preseason. And then Bennett, responds. So fun little preseason game. We had a couple this week. Let's go to the Ravens and the Cowboys. The Cooper Rush revenge game, much less fun, Shook. I didn't have a ton of huge takeaways here, other than if the Cowboys have to just field backups this season, it will be the worst team in football because they have not looked good these first 2 weeks.
Honestly, look, I'm not a hater without some sort of reason to be a hater. Joe Milton's looked really bad in the preseason. Now he finished 9 for 18, but he was awful in the first half.
It was 3 for 10, and it
was
looked
terrible. It was absolutely 2 for his first 8. Couldn't connect. Threw another interception into double coverage in the end zone on a deep ball where he just let it rip. He's still sailing passes over guys. So yeah, if he has to play, you can leave the rest of the starters out there. If Dak can't play for some reason and they have to go to Joe Milton, it's going to be a bad scenario for the Cowboys. So that was my main takeaway on the Cowboys side. I still hate their running back room. And again, I sound like a hater, but Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams, I don't get inspired by that. Miles Sanders was ineffective in this game as well. Liked what I saw from Tyler Booker when he was out there. But the rest of my takeaways come from the Ravens side, which is that they can run the ball at will still, even with Ali as the main running back. He went 19 for 62. Yeah, it's only 3.3 a pop, but he had some really nice runs, especially some that he was able to bounce outside. And my guy, former Kent State Golden Flash, former North Carolina Tar Heel, Devontae Walker, was a key pass catcher in the first half. He finishes with 6 catches on 8 targets for 61 yards. 5 of those came in the first half. Could have had a touchdown if Rush would have put it on him. It was kind of a scramble drill play. That's about it. Rush, he threw a couple of picks, didn't look great, didn't look as good as he used to look with the Cowboys. I think there's still an adjustment period for them before they turn to Drew Leary. So a classic preseason game where you look at it after and you go, well, that happened. I watched that game.
The most notable thing was who didn't play, I think, for the Cowboys. Javonte Williams sat. And so I heard some talk after, especially from the local guys, okay, that's Javonte Williams winning the job. He is their starting running back, I think. And I think Phil Maffa, this rookie who I talked up at training camp, who I popped a big run on the day I was there, a 50-yard touchdown. I think he's going to make this team. He's played well. Jaden Blue is going to make this team. They might not even keep Miles Sanders there. Jonathan Mingo, who I wasn't sure was going to make the team anyways, hurt his knee. It's reportedly a PCL injury, so just a little bit of a note there. And after the game, John Harbaugh announced if there was any doubt, Tyler Loop is their kicker. Now, he did miss a 50-yarder in this game, but he is definitely their kicker. No surprise there. Keaton Mitchell, who had missed all week of practice, has a hamstring injury. They do think he's going to be back. And yeah, in terms of the one-sided natures of the backups, I mean, I know it's just backups, but you don't want your backups to get 7 first downs and the other team's backups to get 26 first downs. But that's where these two teams were at least over the weekend. Let's move on. We don't need to spend too much time on this game. The 49ers and the Raiders, to me, were more fun because we got Geno out there. We got Brock Bowers out there with a really nice catch down the field. And then we got Ashton Genty truck sticking someone.
And having better leverage at the line of scrimmage.
Run again with Genty. That's a bulldozer. He is bouncing off defenders and dragged down. And Max Crosby's the first one off the sideline to give him a high five.
Great call there by the Raiders crew. That got me fired up. And yes, if you're listening to this in your ears, we do have a YouTube version of the show with the highlights. When we get to the Sunday regular season, we're all about the highlights and the calls, and it's just nice to get that back in the mix. So check that out, like and subscribe. It was cool to see Ashton Genty just kind of look like Ashton Genty out there after a quiet first preseason week. I've seen enough out of him. I don't need to see
Yeah. He can go on ice for the rest of the preseason. I don't need anything to be proven to me. I know who he is, and I know that his game is going to translate to the next level very well. And we saw multiple instances of this in that game, not just that truck stick run, but multiple runs for him. He finished off that drive with a touchdown run as well, kind of barreled through a defender. But you talked about having home calls on preseason games. And I know that was the home call for the Raiders, but if you listen, you can watch or you can listen. No matter how you're consuming this podcast right now, you can hear the energy in that voice right there, right? That was the energy emanating from Allegiant Stadium that day because Geno and Genty and Brock Bowers and Pete Carroll have injected so much life into this franchise seemingly overnight that it convinced me as I'm watching them go down the field and score, oh my God, the Raiders might be fun again. I might want to watch this team all season long. It's like a day and night transformation. I know it's the preseason, but it's been so long since the Silver and Black has taken the field and come out with like authority and an attitude. And they certainly embodied that in this game. And I know, again, it's the preseason, but Geno was sharp. He looks like he's in complete command of that offense. I love the idea of him, capitalizing with Brock Bowers all year. That throw that he had to Brock Bowers, by the way, early in that game, he was not open. Brock Bowers just made a great play on a great ball by Geno. So super excited about their potential.
Let's see that play.
Genty, who was right behind Geno Smith. Passing on first down, taking a shot for Bowers. Oh, what a grab! Over the safety, Jair Brown. And that's a pickup of 30.
Best on best. There were a lot of starters on the field for the 49ers, by the way. So it was starters. I liked how Geno was changing the protections, changing the calls, getting them into the right spot. Couple surprises for the Raiders. Right now, at least, I don't put too much into the preseason, but like Bowers is kind of like coming in and on and off the field. I'm just guessing that's while Mayer just stays there, I'm guessing that's just the preseason. They don't want to put him too much on him right now. Jack Besh is definitely not a starter, not playing with the starters. The rookie Dante Thornton, drafted much later, is a starter. Jackson Powers Johnson, who was drafted high, is definitely not the starter. They confirmed that at center. It's going to be Jordan Meredith, and JPJ is competing just to start at guard. And then here was someone I had never heard of, I have to admit, before. A man by the name of Q Blue Kelly. Q, first name, Blue, middle name or part of the first name, I'm not sure, but two different words. Kelly was starting at cornerback, and he had all week. Guy who had been on the practice squad previously, been in the league for 3 years. They're searching there, and they're just trying to find guys that Pete Carroll can believe in. He was actually with the Seahawks a couple of years ago, so he knows him, and he might be their starting cornerback. They are thin there. The 49ers are just trying to get through this preseason, Shook, healthy, and it's not really working. Dominic Pooney, their good young guard who played really well last year, is reportedly going to be out a few weeks with a PCL injury. And then they had a couple more running backs go down in this game. Not guys we know that well, Corey Kiner and Patrick Taylor, but Corey Kiner was an undrafted guy who was going to make this team. And I counted it up now. Their top 4 backups behind Christian McCaffrey are all hurt. I don't think any of them are super long-term, but it's just weird that McCaffrey's like the one guy that's healthy and everyone else is hurt there.
Yeah, and there was an injury that saw McCaffrey come out there to kind of, console his teammate. And it was just like, you could almost see in his eyes like, I'm reminded again of how fragile my career is. Like, he's not even dressed. But yeah, it's a little concerning for their offense. By the way, Brock Purdy looked really sharp when he was out there before they went down the depth charts of Mac Jones, who threw a pretty awful interception. But it kind of reminded me of, I talked so glowingly about the Raiders offense. I am concerned about this defense for the reason that you just explained. And also, they kind of got shredded. And I know Jeremy Chin has always been a playmaker at safety and made a play on that interception, but I think that's going to be a real weakness for them this year. I think they're going to end up in a lot of relatively high scoring games because that's the only way they're going to be able to win based on what I've seen. And it makes me wonder, why did you go trade Jacorian Bennett last week if you are so thin in the secondary? A lot to sort out there before we get to week 1.
Yeah, not a scheme fit, I guess, would be the answer. But yeah, we'll get to the Patriots, but they have one of the best matchups for fantasy and reality, their offense in week 1 going up against this Raiders defense. One guy we haven't mentioned that was good with when Purdy was on the field was Demarcus Robinson, the former Ram, who they actually gave pretty good money to. He is expected to be suspended at the beginning of the season. He will be suspended at the beginning of the season. But when he comes back in, like, he will be a key part of the rotation. And Pearsall, the hype for him as like a wide receiver one continues. Like, he had a nice game. The 49ers are a reminder, like, they really needed a draft to hit, and I think it's going to happen. But man, the draft is so unpredictable. Michael Williams has been hurt, but he's expected to start, their first-round pick. But I went and looked through it, and their second-round pick, Alfred Collins, taken 43 overall, just does not look ready to contribute, has really struggled. Might be pretty deep on that depth chart. And then their next pick, Nick Martin at linebacker, really struggled last week, was a little better this week, but is pretty far down the depth chart. So those guys aren't going to contribute. Yet, the 249th pick, Connor Colby, might be their starting guard. The 160th pick, Marquez Sigley, has been rising and might be their starting safety. And then Upton Stout was a late third-round pick, the 100th pick in the draft, and almost certainly is their starting nickel. So it doesn't really matter where you find them. But it reminds us, remember when we project like, oh, this guy will fit there, this is the draft class. It's like, you really don't know until you get to this time of the season. It sounds like they found some late-round guys, but their mid-round, earlier picks not hitting as much, but You'll take it if you get 3 or 4 contributing rookies.
And I have 2 takeaways from this. This is number one, why draft grades are the most useless exercise in sports media, like immediate draft grades. None of you have any idea how they're going to fit or how they're going to play in that team or how they're going to acclimate to the pro game. And the other is, this is also why it's important to make sure that you attack position groups of need with veterans in the offseason. And that was my main takeaway from this game for the Niners, was that guys like Demarcus Robinson, even Russell Gage, he made a really nice diving catch in this game where I was like, oh yeah, he's on this team. He could make a difference because they're going to need these guys because Ayuk's still coming back from the knee injury. I give credit to John Lynch for at least approaching this from both angles. From, all right, look, we may be a little thin there. Let's go pick up some veterans who might be on their last contract or second to last contract, give them another shot, see if they can perform. And at least in this game, a lot of them did.
Yeah. Demarcus Robinson, I should clarify, is, quote, bracing for a 3-game suspension. And it's an automatic 3-game suspension, usually when you plead guilty or no contest to a DUI, which is what happened. But the suspension hasn't actually happened yet. So just for clarification purposes, let's move on to the Browns and the Eagles. And we've got a trade, Shookie, on Sunday. Kind of a challenge trade. I don't know what you would call it. The Texans traded John Mechie, the wide receiver, and a 5th-round pick, I believe, to the Eagles for Harrison Bryant, a tight end, and another pick. It was actually them trading back the picks that they had traded each other, day 3 picks, in the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade, which is just like, why? What are we even doing here? But I don't know if you have any takeaways. Mechie overcame, cancer when he first entered the league, was on the roster bubble, and this is maybe a chance for him to stick with the Eagles when I'm guessing he wasn't like a lock to make this Texans roster.
Yeah, a couple of takeaways. One, Nick Caserio and Howie Roseman just apparently love to talk to each other on the phone, because this is the second time that the Texans have traded a former draft pick that they no longer like to the Eagles, the other one being Kenyon Green, the guard that they sent to the Eagles in the offseason. So, I think I talked about this on the show last week, which is that Mechie served an important purpose in their first preseason game as just a volume catcher. But I do think that as they sift through this depth chart, they probably just didn't see room for him and felt they needed to get something for him. And what they got is a body at tight end in Harrison Bryant, who's been around the league. He started his career with the Browns. He's an Ivy Leaguer, and he's a guy that can fill a spot that was left open by Brevin Jordan's injury. So a guy that can compete for a job. They have, Dalton Schultz, Cade Stover, and Irv Smith Jr. on that depth chart as well. So there's no guarantee that he ends up even on this roster. But I think at this point, if you're making that deal, you're looking at, look, we have too many receivers. We don't think Mechie's going to make the team. Let's move him now to a team that might give him an opportunity, get a player back that we would like to at least get into the mix before the end of training camp and preseason. Yeah.
And to be clear, and this hurts my brain because they're trading the picks back and forth, but the Texans moved back up. In the previous trade, they had moved down from the 5th to the 6th, like swapping the two teams' picks. And now they moved back up as part of this trade, which is indicating like Mechie is, a little bit more valuable in this case than Bryant. We'll see, because he's got to go make that team. I really like what I've heard out of Jahan Dotson. He's a solid 3 for the Eagles this year. So Mechie's kind of battling to be the 4. In terms of the game, it was not Eagles-Texans. It was Eagles-Browns, and we got a whole new round of Browns quarterback takes. Let's not talk about Dylan Gabriel's comment on the sideline at this point. Let's just talk, Shook, about what you saw and have heard and think about where Dylan Gabriel and this Browns quarterback situation is at.
You mean you're granting me the opportunity to keep it on the field, keep it in the X's and O's? My God, I feel so blessed. In today's climate, Dylan Gabriel started 4 for 4. Heck of a first drive. Completed 3 passes on third down to keep that drive going. They marched down the field, not quickly, but methodically, and scored a touchdown. And then, Twitter's ablaze. Oh my God, he looks so good. Now we see why he was a 3rd round pick. The next drive, he fails to give up on a play that he should just thrown the ball away. Throws it between 2 targets, a tight end and Deontay Johnson. Tight end kind of gives up on the ball, and it ends up in the hands of rookie Andrew Makuba, who returns it for a touchdown. Deontay gave up on that play, but also can't really blame him. He was behind him. He wasn't going to catch him. So the highs and lows of a first appearance for Dylan Gabriel. I thought that, he's a shorter quarterback. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but he went out there and clearly understood what he was supposed to do on a play-by-play basis. And again, threw with a lot of conviction. I listened to Kevin O'Connell talk about that with JJ McCarthy this week. He's throwing with conviction. That's what we need. And I saw that from Dylan Gabriel, which was encouraging. From there, he finished 13 of 18, 143 yards. The stat line doesn't look as good as Shador's last week. Everyone's going to throw that graphic up on social media and point to that. But overall, I thought it was a solid appearance for him. And I still have no clarity on what's going on beyond Joe Flacco with this team, which really just is kind of the Browns in a nutshell.
So after the game, and then in a press conference later, Stefanski confirmed that he will announce the starter early this week. So you assume it's Joe Flacco. He's taking all the starting reps in the last few weeks in the joint practices, and you assume Stefanski just wants to talk to everyone. After that, the question to me is just, do you keep Kenny Pickett on the team or not? And what do you even do with him over the next week or two? Because you've almost had a best case scenario in the preseason. Obviously, you would have liked Gabriel and Shador to be healthier, but they both played better, I think, in the preseason than you would have expected. And so the whole point of this season, according to Stefanski, is just developing these quarterbacks. And to me, Gabriel, despite having 2 turnovers, which is a big despite, I really do blame the tight end on that play for totally giving up. Gabriel also shouldn't have made that throw, but I think it was Whitehart or whatever. Like, it was a weird play, and Gabriel forced it. But otherwise, I thought he was everything Kevin Stefanski wants in a quarterback. You're right, throwing with conviction. I mean, he almost has to take a crow hop to get it in there.
He's poor man's Baker Mayfield. That's what I've said about him since they drafted him. He's poor man's Baker Mayfield.
Here's the thing, though, they took him in the 3rd round because someone really wanted him. And I have to just assume Kevin Stefanski, who's the quarterback guy, is that someone. And after hearing that Gabriel had struggled early in camp, the fact that he reportedly played quite well in the joint practice and then in this game, he had a really good week. I think Shador had a really good week the week before. Good problem. And I bet they'll both play this year. I just bet they will. And Kenny Pickett doesn't really make much sense. So that's
trade Kenny Pickett to the Cowboys so that they don't have to lean on Joe Milton in case of emergency. How about that? Everybody wins.
It's a pretty good idea, to be honest. And don't take less than a 5th round pick, because the Cowboys will overpay. Yeah. When the Browns would absolutely take a pick swap from the 6th to the 7th, just like anything, just because why not?
Jack up the price. Jack it up.
Just jack up the price. Okay.
Andrew Berry likes to do that with Stephen Jones. We've learned that with the Amari Cooper trade.
That's a good call. That's our Browns. And the comment by Dylan Gabriel, I believe the young man when he said, this is a quote that I've given many times before. He almost was saying hey, I'm a really boring athlete who just falls into cliches, join the club. A lot of quarterbacks are like that. And I've said this many times and no one's ever, and when he said that, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. Move on. Dylan Sampson looks like he's the starter at running back right now, and that's good. On the Eagles side, they didn't play many starters. They didn't even play Tanner McKee. Like, he's too good to even play in the preseason now. So not a ton of takeaways, but they still are searching for that second cornerback. And you mentioned Jacorian Bennett earlier, and he had some nice plays. And I think he's got a chance to win this starting job because Keely Ringo keeps struggling for this team. So you also mentioned Andrew Makuba with the pick 6. He actually had 2 turnovers. He fell on a fumble, but you're trying to win a starting job as a rookie. Like, that's how you do it. You get 2 turnovers. So
yeah, it's basically him or Sidney Brown at that position. And I think,
right.
Stat line wise, it doesn't look good beyond that, but like from the tape itself, guy's got an instinct for the ball, and that's what you need out of your safety, especially in that defense. So I think it's strong. Bennett had a really good pass breakup in coverage where I was like, wow, the Raiders traded that guy. Again, why did you trade him?
Bennett. I liked him as a rookie, at least. I think he's like a natural. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Adoree Jackson, who's also on the Eagles. Johnny Wilson barely plays. He's kind of locked up like the 4th spot. That's why I'm like, where is Mechie going to fit in there? And then A.J. Dillon, just for fantasy, heads out there, definitely behind Will Shipley. Not totally sure he's going to make this team. All right, that is a lot on the Browns and the Eagles, but I had a good time. Let's go to the Patriots and the Vikings. Drake May's come out in these 2 games and looked a little skittish off the top, like a little lucky not to have more turnovers than he's had. Not a big deal, but just on my radar, just a little jumpy. And he was out there. I do like that Travion Henderson has just looked awesome in both games, just in limited work. And the cool thing to me, Shook, was that he just started taking normal reps. He's got a fullback in front of him on the goal line. He's doing inside runs. It wasn't like, hey, this is our 3rd down back. It was, hey, this is a real running back.
Yeah, and he broke a couple arm tackles on that touchdown run. Seeing the physicality that we used to see from him at Ohio State. I love their backfield. If Ramondre can keep himself from fumbling the football, I think they're going to be one of the more physical and potentially explosive, classic backfields in the NFL, which I think bodes well when you're, entering a season with a second-year quarterback and an offensive line that still has to prove itself and figure out how to gel, especially after how bad it was last year. So all of those are positives for me. I also, you talk about Drake being skittish, and I agree, but there was that one play where he like broke the pocket right and threw kind of off platform to a wide open Matt Collins, where I was like, oh, look at that arm. Like, I was just like, yeah, put it on him on the sideline. So I think that, we're on track for him to have a very solid year too as well. And on the Viking side, there's like not really much to say because they didn't play anybody.
No, there wasn't much. Like the is it Max Brosmer?
Yeah, Max
Some
Brosmer.
dimes. I think they found something. See a 7th round pick or undrafted guy? I think they found a guy that Kevin O'Connell is going to be excited to develop as the long-term backup, and he might be the short-term backup. I'm not sure, like, Sam Howell was bad in this game. I'm not sure, like, they'll keep a veteran with him. I would assume it'd be Howell, not Rippon, but Brosmer looks pretty good. Jalen Naylor hurt his hand in this game. They're already really thin at wide receiver. Let's get back on the field, Justin Jefferson. At a certain point, them saying it's not a big deal, like, this next week, if he's not back on the field, I start to be a little worried. And then just a couple final Patriots notes. Efton Chisholm, who Jordan also says a little something to him. Like, he's a big winner in this training camp, in this game. I think he goes 6 for 71, had 2 big joint practices. He's making this team. So they're not going to risk putting him through waivers. We talked about this big wide receiver group coming into camp. To me, the 2 biggest winners have been Efton Chisholm, a rookie undrafted, and Kayshon Boutte, who I just didn't think was going to be a guy who cemented himself as a playmaker who's going to start for this team, but that is where he's at. He is going to start for this team. Also, their 7th round pick at tackle, Marcus Bryant, like, is carving out a pretty big role, either as their swing tackle or maybe even as a starter. Kyle Williams, my favorite young receiver on this team, who's been pretty good too, has a concussion, so he probably is going to miss this week of practice. Let's take one more quick break, and we'll wrap up on the other side. We're taping this Sunday night, Shook. I fear that predicting the Colts quarterback battle will potentially get out of date soon. But I have a strong gut feeling it's going to Daniel Jones. And I don't like it. And the following quote from Steichen is part of that feeling. Let's listen.
It's everything, right? The operation, the communication in the huddle, the checks, getting guys on the same page, the consistency of all that obviously is going to play a big factor in this. I've seen, obviously, 3 weeks of it, so I'd like to have a decision here shortly.
Okay, that was Steichen being asked what's going to go into it. Consistency, operation. It just sounds like Daniel Jones. And then I thought about the way he did this game, Shook. Remember how they were going to have to flip-flop because Richardson didn't really get his chance? Well, in the end, Daniel Jones still got to play 2 whole series and play the first quarter. When Tyler Warren was on the field, when Michael Pittman was on the field, when Quentin Nelson was on the field, you know who was on the field with him? Daniel Jones. And I just think about the money they gave him. I don't like it, but it just makes me feel like the fix was in for Daniel Jones this whole time. That a tie goes to Daniel Jones. You would think it'd be a tie goes to Richardson. You know the conspiracy theories, Shook, that they were setting up Shedeur to fail a little bit in Cleveland?
Yeah.
That might be a little more true in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think David Ojabo was an inside job. Like, knocking Richardson out of the game in Baltimore.
I'm not saying that either.
I know.
But I'm glad you brought that up. I think that was the moment. I do think that was the moment.
Yeah,
I think that was the moment he lost his job.
And it is a bummer because if you look at it just from snap by snap, it's very close. Like, neither has been great. And I would lean Richardson, but I agree with you when you read through the lines, between the lines of what he's saying there, which is this is their big gripe with him in the past was that he wasn't prepping like a pro. He didn't handle the job like a pro. He asked out of a play in Houston last year because he was tired. And if that's what he's emphasizing at this point, yeah, it leans toward Daniel Jones. I hate it because I think their ceiling is low. I think it's pretty low regardless, unless Richardson took a big step forward. But at least Richardson has that in him. I don't know if Daniel Jones does. But again, I feel like Steichen is feeling the pressure. And if anything, he wants somebody that he can count on to at least get everything organized and set up correctly operationally and then let the chips fall where they may.
Right. Like, Daniel Jones started this game with 2 ugly passes, and it got me thinking, this is what I'm talking about not the fix, but about pushing the scale a little bit. Then he came back out for another drive. Like, they didn't want it to end on that. And to be fair, Daniel Jones had a couple really nice throws on the second drive. But to me, it's very Daniel Jones that you win the job with a couple really nice throws on like a long, pretty boring field goal drive. It was like, I don't know. Like, Anthony Richardson also played like fairly well in this game after a slow start, but he was up, he was down. Just everything you hear makes it sound like these 2 guys have kind of been exactly what you would expect. And I just got to thinking, like, I think they know Anthony Richardson so well. If they believed in him, they would have been backing him a little more. You know what I mean? This kind of been a worst case scenario because both guys are just like the C version of themselves, which is like no one is really winning.
But what did you expect when you brought this pairing into camp?
Right.
You thought Daniel Jones was just suddenly going to turn over a new leaf because he's wearing a horseshoe on the side of his helmet now? He's still the same guy he's been for the last few years. That was one of the things I jotted down while watching the game live. I'm just like, still the same guy. Oh, that was a nice throw. That's there it is. That's Daniel Jones, same guy. And it just sucks because I would like more for Colts fans.
They'll both play in the end, right? I mean, what are the odds?
Terrible.
I guess Daniel Jones stayed healthy last year.
That's not the scenario you want.
Right. I was really taken by James Boyd of The Athletic, had a great tidbit in a joint practice write-up between the Giants and the Colts. And it was Xavier McKinney, former Giant, former Daniel Jones teammate, yelling at Daniel Jones as Daniel Jones just dinked and dunked down the field and kept throwing short on 3rd and long when they're going against the Packers. And he just yells at him, DJ, throw it deep. Like, show off that arm. And then he did it, and he throws it short again, and he yells at him again. And I'm like, man, you got Xavier McKinney just yelling at you for being a dink and dunk merchant. Meanwhile, they had a ton of injuries in this game. Their offensive line has not played well. If you think I'm down on the Colts, I am. I am. Josh Downs got hurt in this game. They're maybe their best receiver. Let's talk about the Packers. Do you have anything to say on the Packers? They sat 29 players in this game, so at least from this game, there probably isn't like a ton.
Yeah, I mean, their leading rusher was Izzy Abanikanda, and the main takeaway for me was, oh my God, this operation is so damn sloppy. This game was an absolute drag. Like,
Okay.
I had 2 games on at once. They had 23 combined accepted penalties for almost 200 penalty yards.
Oh my
and the
gosh.
Packers, I mean, they robbed themselves of multiple scoring opportunities. Taylor Oguersma, the Canadian quarterback who won the Canadian Heisman, throws a beautiful pass over the middle to a tight end who catches it on the goal line. Tough grab for a touchdown, wiped out by illegal formation. Same player had 2 illegal formation penalties on the same drive. I'm just like, I know Matt LaFleur's got to be pulling his hair out right now because it's
Anthony
gotta be a clean
Belton.
operation.
He had
Yes.
5 penalties in the first quarter. You don't
Yes.
see that too much.
No.
Second round pick. He got chewed out by LaFleur. LaFleur did reveal something over the weekend, though, in a press conference. I think it was Sunday, saying the left tackle is a competition now. And Jordan Morgan, who started their first round pick from a year ago, played at left tackle in this game. It sounds to me like they like what they are seeing out of Jordan Morgan, and maybe they're going to elevate him over Rashad Walker, who's been their starter the last couple of years. So a little nugget there. And then Marshawn Lloyd, their running back, who was going to be the backup to Josh Jacobs. So if you're drafting, like, you can't trust this guy. Every time he plays, he gets hurt, and he had a hamstring injury in this game. Let's go to the Texans. We mentioned them earlier in terms of their John Mechie trade, but they did play a game and they won. They won easy, 20-3 against the Panthers. Nick Chubb getting the start at running back shook, and the offensive line showed some good physicality. And Chubb, it's interesting to me that he was first up, played all the snaps really with the starters, and when CJ Stroud was out there.
Yeah, there was a sequence where it was just like Chubb up the middle, Chubb up the middle, Chubb up the middle. So it kind of robs you of the ability to judge whether he is getting some of his juice back. I thought he looked better than he did last year. He still doesn't look like the same old Nick Chubb. I don't think he ever is going to, but he was a little quicker than he was last year. And, 5 for 25, I think, so 5 yards a pop. That's solid in a limited outing. I also really like what they have in Woody Marks. Like we've talked about, what's the running back situation with Joe Mixon out and Nick Chubb's like the lead replacement. I think Woody Marks is gonna factor into how they operate on the ground this season. CJ Stroud's out there for a little bit, 6 of 8 for 44 yards, leads a nice touchdown drive, and Nico Collins is on the field at that time as well. So, they're playing the Panthers. The Panthers looked bad offensively against the Texans defense.
They were playing their starters, the Panthers.
And the Texans defense is going to make you most teams look bad. So I look, low ceiling for the Panthers, low bar. And other than that, just not a lot to really glean from this game overall, because before long, Keaton Slovis was in the game.
Yeah. I watched as many of these running backs as I could this weekend, like just their snaps. And because I agree with our friend Chris Wesseling, who would always say, in preseason, you can see the rookie runners that pop. It's not that hard to scout runners, relatively. And I think you can see their ability against backups or not. Like Caleb Johnson, to me, at least right now, is running a little, like, not what I want to see yet. I think the guy I liked the best was Woody Marks, like of the lower guys, like great lateral quickness, was doing some good inside runs, not just they're done. I mean, he's smaller, but he runs hard. So if you get Mixon back healthier, if it's a Chubb or Pierce combo with Marks, that'll work. And in general, I know our friend Seth Payne has just liked the cohesion, the aggression, the offensive line just looks more competent. That's all we're looking for, especially in the running game. Does it look more competent? And they look pretty good here. Jaden Higgins also played a little bit with the first team offense, not a ton, their second round pick. And man, his feet really move well at that size. On the Panthers side, yeah, you mentioned it. The first team for the Panthers had negative yardage in 2 series. And then they just took Bryce Young out. They're just like, we don't want to mess with that. Andy Dalton hurt his elbow in this game, and so we don't know his situation. And I can't remember, I think I mentioned this on a previous show, Nick Scorton, the draft pick for the Panthers, had suffered a collapsed lung on Thursday's practice, and it might be a little more serious than they realized, and we'll see what his status is. But the Panthers signed Bryce Perkins who I think was like the UFL MVP or something, which does not bode well for Andy Dalton, or maybe they just need another arm to show up at camp.
Yeah,
I don't know
imagine.
if you have much more here.
No, it's just the arm for camp. Unless the Dalton thing's serious, but I don't think it's serious. I think it's just another arm for camp. It's the Tyler Huntley of the Panthers, essentially. They have another preseason game to play.
Now that I think about it, the John Mechie trade makes more sense too, because Xavier Hutchinson was playing with the starters actually over Jaden Higgins, because Higgins is kind of Nico Collins' backup, but Hutchinson is more of like a slot guy. And so maybe he is making this team if you're into that. Rico Dowdle was their third down back behind Chuba Hubbard. Let's go to the Dolphins and the Lions, two teams that did not play that many starters, which is good, Shook, because frankly, this show is going a little too long. I don't know. People love this show. People just tell me
they do.
They love the Sunday night show. I think we can call two things from this game, though. Number one, Kyle Allen is the backup quarterback for the Lions. He's just easily outplayed Hendon Hooker. And number two, I've seen enough of Isaac Tesla. I might have to put him into the preseason MVP mix just for how he's made me feel. It's more of a feel award.
Yeah, I get real juiced up to watch the Lions in the preseason just because I know Isaac Tesla is out there. And frankly, I'm going to be just as excited to see how he fits in this offense in the regular season, because I think he's going to make a difference. I loved his tape at Arkansas. Like, this was one of my favorite guys coming out of the draft that ended up being a mid-round guy. And it really is, exciting and a little bit satisfying to see them carry over and instantly produce even in the preseason. He's just a natural fit. I think he's going to be great for them. I had another point. I think Zach Wilson is fine as your backup quarterback. He looked fine.
Okay.
He looked comfortable in that offense. I think he's fine.
A little bit of a Quinn Ewers bounce back too. We mentioned how he went 5 for 18, so it's only fair to mention he looked much better this week. Jonah Savaianea, it was the only starter out there with the Dolphins and has struggled a little bit in the preseason in terms of their offensive linemen. That he was a second-round pick. I believe the Patriots would have taken him over Travion Henderson if he had been available, according to just piecing together a few reports. That might prove to work out well for the Patriots, just because Henderson looks like a good player. Devon Achane has a soft tissue injury, and they say it could be days or it could be weeks. That's what Mike McDaniel said about both Achane and Zach Sealer, who are both really important players, obviously. Tyreek Hill also has been out with an oblique injury. They didn't play starters, like I mentioned. Cam Smith, by the way, the former second-round pick, barely played. I think he is going to get cut. And Jalen Wright seems pretty locked into that, like Raheem Mostert RB2 role, maybe RB1 if Achane isn't healthy.
Yeah,
But
I like
man,
Jalen
Tesla.
Wright. I like what Jalen Wright brings to the field, by the way. I keep an eye on him. I think he's an explosive guy that people don't really pay attention to because Achane's in that backfield. Keep an eye on him.
Tesla's going to be a factor. I had my doubts, and Jeremiah was talking him up, and I think he's going to matter in this season, which is a big surprise. This is what the preseason's for, to learn nuggets like that, because you can't count on that guy. He didn't see a lot of, but he's in the right offense, and man, he makes some awesome plays. We're going all the way back to Friday night now. Seahawks, Chiefs. I don't know if I've ever seen a first-round pick at guard, Shook, have a flashier debut. I guess this was his second game, but a flashier preseason game than Gray Zabel. Gray Zabel's just out there making crazy blocks in space, and suddenly the Seattle offensive line is fixed, at least in the middle of August.
Was it Nate Tice who posted the reel of all of his great blocking?
Yes.
Oh, and so I'm watching it, and I'm like, well, that was good. Wow, that was great. Wow, he can really move. He's a load, and he can really move, and he's great on impact. And then it hits me like on the third clip. I'm like, this is all zone runs. And then I went, oh, Clint Kubiak's their OC. It's the classic Kubiak offense right there. Like, of course. And it all made sense to me. And it made sense why they drafted him, because he has those physical tools. This was an offensive line that was terrible last year. And you don't make it into a stellar offensive line overnight. But getting a guard that can play that well, even if it's just in the preseason, is a big step forward, especially for how they want to approach this offense and how you want to run out of the zone, and you want to have the quarterbacks back to the line of scrimmage and run play action, stuff like that. Big win for them. And a show off type of performance for him against Kansas City, and a bit of prime time there, a little West Coast prime time. I'm excited for him.
It was preposterous how much they dominated running the ball against the Chiefs. It was something like 119 yards, I think, in the first quarter. They did everything. Like Sam Darnold was in there and was perfect, but all he had to do was do a couple rollouts and boot actions and just throw these easy passes because they ran so well. They bring Jalen Milroe out for a tush push on 3rd and short at midfield with Darnold on the field. Yeah, like give me some more. It was definitely giving Clint Kubiak early September Saints vibes, but I'll take it. Like the way that this offensive line has been in the past, they were in unison. They were playing aggressive. They're healthier. They have Abe Lucas, I think, is a really important player for them. And so to me, it's just the preseason, but reason for optimism. They also got Ken Walker back at practice on Sunday, and then Uchenna Nwosu passed his physical. They're very good pass rusher who's been on the NFI list, I believe, and now will start practicing with the team. So some good injury news there. The Chiefs weren't playing their starters, and yet they had 4 guys hurt in this game that I think were set to make the team. Really depth mostly in the secondary. Mike Edwards, Najee Johnson, Noah Williams. So we'll see. Not a lot of takeaways for me with the Chiefs other than Tyquan Thornton is making this team. He's making plays, and he's playing as either the 4th or the 5th receiver. I don't think Sky Moore is making this team, which it's always a catch-22, Shook. He had a punt return touchdown at the end of the game. Long play, like maybe one of his best plays as a pro. But it's like the catch-22. It's like Kyle Duggar had an interception to end the Patriots game. But
he was playing.
Yeah,
in the
that's
fourth quarter.
great. But you're playing in the final seconds of the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
That's actually more bad than good ultimately.
Yeah, I actually am surprised that. Look, I'm a Mac guy, and Sky Moore was a very productive receiver at Western Michigan, and I was hoping for the best for him. And I'm surprised that the experiment lasted this long. So not at all shocked that he's not going to make this team. He just hasn't. He's never found his. And I feel like receivers like that. When you come to the league with like elite level talent, you can find a way to fit in. Xavier Worthy, elite level speed type. You can find a way to fit into the Chiefs offense. When you don't have quite that, I think it's harder for you to find your role within Kansas City's offense, especially a team with such high expectations. So I don't think this is the end for him in his NFL career by any means, but I do think that their pairing, soured a while ago.
Yeah, and they have a 4th round pick, Jalen Royals, who's making this team. And then who does have elite speed, Shook? Former Bill Belichick 2nd round pick, Tyquan Thornton. I mean, that's what he's got, and he's making plays. Let's move on to our final game, Titans, Falcons. Falcons sat everyone. They sat their backups. They keep doing this. It's interesting to me that James Pierce and Jalen Walker keep playing when no one else is. I don't know if they just want to see more. He is playing a lot. Jalen Walker actually was hurt, I believe, and not playing. But Pierce got a pressure in this game. Not many takeaways for me. DJ Chark seems like he is not making this team. If you're curious, and Casey Washington is. Cam Ward did play. Not amazing, Shook, but he did have one really great throw to Van Jefferson, and Van Jefferson dropped it. Which, yeah.
And I hate, and don't want to be a hater, but as I watched it, I went, there's Van Jefferson dropping a great ball again.
Right.
He also had a really nice throw, and I know he completed like 2 of 7 passes, so there's not a lot to work with, right? But might have been Ward's first throw of the game. Pocket collapses to the right, and he's like backed up in the shadow of his own goalpost. He slides out of the pocket, feels the pressure, keeps his eyes downfield, and hits one of those like wrist flick throws that you saw him do at Miami a lot to Alec Iomenor, and for a 35-yard gain. And I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. That's it. Let me see more of that. But my biggest concern that I came away with after watching this game, like I could lose sleep over this realistically. Are they going to ever have any guys who get separation? Because if this is the situation for them all year, it's going to be rough for him. And it's not even going to be his fault. Throughout that game, and I know Ridley and Lockett are not, out there making plays and everything, but it just didn't see any separation from these guys. You got to get open to take advantage of your 1st round pick and your number 1 overall pick in Cam Ward.
I am worried he's going to have a Caleb Williams type of season that everything gets blown up. A.U. Manor, that's what we settled on for pronunciation. Me and
A.U. Manor.
I think
I heard a different one on the broadcast too.
Yeah, he does look good. He might be wide receiver 2 on this team. I actually wouldn't be surprised. The 4th round rookie behind Calvin Ridley. They're putting him in motion. I think they're going to use him quite a bit. They're also going to use the rookie Gunnar Helm. Let's wrap the show with at least one more highlight.
It's 1st and 10 from the 25 of the Falcons. Allen taking the shot down the field to the end zone.
Helm, touchdown. 25 yards from Brandon Allen to Gunnar Helm.
That's what the preseason is all about. Gunnar Helm just mossing people week after week.
Weight room,
I liked
baby.
Gunnar Helm, rookie tight end. Let's go.
Weight room, show the guns off, get up there. Bodied 2 guys to make a grab on the goal line. That's preseason. That's what it's all about right there.
It is. Look, we're rolling here. I mentioned Jeremiah. Like, we've got 2 40s and free agents talking about the AFC South, NFC South coming up this week. We've got a full slate of NFL daily shows. We actually, Shook, only have one more of these preseason recaps next Sunday. So the preseason, they say it's 6 weeks. From the very beginning of practice to the end, it feels even longer, but we're getting close to the regular season.
Used to be 6 games.
Oh my gosh, it's too much. We're going to be back in the studio. I'm going to be talking to my friend JP Acosta. We're going to talk news. We're going to talk the most intriguing offenses in the league. And I'm not going to put the Titans there, but like when Gunnar Helm is just mossing people, that's football being back.